On silent, save your questions until the end where we'll have a Q&A session. CVTV is recording this learning lab, and it will be available on the CVTV and our website.
Perfect. Sounds good. As she introduced, I'm Jason Noble. I'm one of our senior deputy fire marshals in the fire marshal office, and going to talk about our existing occupancy commercial fire and life safety program and what it is and why we do it. First question we have to answer is, why are fire and life safety inspections important? It is a critical part of fire prevention. It helps protect people, business owners, property, and the community, anybody that visits. Here you can see in this picture, if you've been a resident of Clark County, you'll recognize this off of Highway 99, Carpet City. There was a big commercial fire about 2022. It's actually been removed, and there has been no building replaced there if you drive by. This is what we're trying to prevent, is something like a fire that's disastrous to property owners, to business owners, and to the community. It's important that we prevent these kinds of things. Another one, if you remember back in 2019, this would be Holly Park. There's a brand new commercial building off of Highway 99 that has been replaced, but it's taken until about now to get businesses back in there. So why we do these inspections? We do regular inspections to help this kind of financial disaster that happens to business owners, and it also helps lower the cost of insurance to our community and our business owners here in Clark County. What is a fire and life safety inspection? This is an inspection that our office, our inspectors or deputy fire marshals may show up, and we walk through your business and we walk through your structures and make sure that it meets all fire codes, it meets safety regulations. Depending on what kind of business owner you are or what kind of business you're running, we'll come see you every year. If you have things that I'll talk about that are called operational permits, or we can come see you every 3 years. If you're a small real estate business office, and there's not things that we're super concerned about, that will depend on the frequency of how often we show up. Operational permits. So this is what I was talking about. If you're a business owner and you have an operational permit, this is not a permit that you're going to come to the Clark County Permit Center to get. This is something that is completely separate from like a new construction permit. This is a permit that's fire marshal's office is basically okaying and saying, hey, you're good to use this, have this kind of operation, whether that be like propane gas or woodworking or welding. These are all kinds of things that we issue operational permits for. We just verify that the way you're doing it, the way that your process is being maintained is going to mitigate the risk and hazard of whatever the operation that you're doing that could potentially have some kind of risk. Our fire inspection process. The funny thing is, maybe you think when a fire inspector shows up to your business, the first thing, they're not starting till they walk through that front door. Actually, there's a lot of pre-planning that happens on the back end before your inspection starts. We look at whether or not your systems have been serviced. We look at the history of the building, what used to be in there, how long you've been there, age of the building, and then pulling up onto your site. Obviously, we're looking for fire department access. We're looking at your hydrants, your FDCs, making sure that your building is addressed correctly, so that if there was an emergency, fire response knows exactly where they're going and how to get to an emergency very quickly. Then we continue our inspection of walking through your business, looking for things that we're going to talk about here later in this presentation, documenting those, showing you the importance of why you should or shouldn't do a certain thing a certain way. And then we document these in a report that you get via email. And then our inspectors, usually within 30 days, will show up to do what we call is a re-inspection to make sure that the things have been addressed and taken care of. Why do we do these? Hot topic in the fire marshal, fire prevention world is something that we call community risk reduction. Community risk reduction is kind of a tricky topic from the fact that to prove that you're doing good community risk reduction is going to be an absence of statistics. So when we don't have fires, when we don't have emergencies, or we don't have issues in our commercial businesses and our commercial property around in Clark County, that is proof that what we're doing is effective. So good thing we haven't had a fire since Carpet City in a commercial setting, really, since 2022. And hopefully we can keep that going. The other part about community risk reduction is something that we call the Washington Surveying and Ratings Bureau. If you are a business owner here in Clark County, this impacts your interest rates, your business insurance. And so having this program here in Clark County from our fire marshal's office helps lower the insurance costs for businesses and property owners, and it has an impact. So even though having an inspection, having us come look through your business could seem like an inconvenience, there are other sides to that that actually are benefiting you in the long run. Moving forward, what is fire code? On these fire and life safety inspections, what are we looking for? There are a lot of codes that none of us in the fire marshal's office probably could be experts at any one of these, but some examples are the International Fire Code. That will also reference something that we call the NFPA documents, the National Fire Protection Association. We also have our own fire code, Title 15 in the Clark County Code. And then all of your appliances or anything that you may use, it also is something that we call UL listed on how it needs to be used, how it needs to be maintained. These are all things that we look for when doing an inspection. Next, we're going to move into kind of what we look at when we're, so you can have a pair of eyes for what we look at when we come and do a fire and life safety inspection. Like I talked about, first thing when we're pulling up, even though we haven't met you physically on site, we're looking at things. I've already talked about the address, making sure that the building is addressed appropriately. If you have dumpsters, making sure those are away from combustible material and walls, sides of the building, just in case of a fire so it doesn't impact the building itself. Looking at other combustible materials, excessive vegetation around your building. Like I mentioned, we also look at making sure that there's fire department access. If you ever see those curbs that are painted red that look like great places when you can't find a parking space, those are intentionally put there to maintain access for our fire department to respond and have access to all sides of a structure. Making sure that those signs are curbed or curbs are clearly marked as no parking fire lane. Looking at your fire hydrants, making sure that there's 3 feet. Nobody's parked in front of those so that they can be used when needed. In today's world, we see a lot of business owners that put up gates just for extra security. We are not opposed to you having a gate, but we want you to come through the fire marshal's office to make sure that that fire department access is maintained and that fire department has a way to either open or get through that gate. Another thing for access that we talk about is called a Knox box. Like I was talking earlier about a gate, most gates are an electronic gate. They have a key switch. Here in Clark County, we have our own Knox key. That is the Clark County Fire Marshal Gate Key. This is all fire departments in Clark County, which we have several, have this key and can use this to gain access onto a property. Outside of that, commercial businesses will have what we call a Knox box. This would have your key to your actual front door of your business. This is a different key from Knox, and that key is only keyed specifically for your fire district that you are in. This allows, by the time somebody from your district shows up, if a fire alarm for one scenario goes off and they don't see any active fire, instead of breaking your $5,000 front door, they can open this box and open your front door without causing any property damage. So we strive to ensure that these keys get updated and that all commercial businesses that either have a fire alarm or a sprinkler system have a Knox box. Other things we look at, electrical. I can tell you personally, if you went around my personal house, I drive my wife crazy with this. But from doing the job, making sure that you're not using extension cords. In the International Fire Code, it states that extension cords are something that we call temporary use, not more than 90 days. And so if you're running an extension cord, have it stapled to a wall or running underneath carpet, that gives the appearance that that's not really something that is temporary. So we look at those. If you have power strips, making sure those power strips are plugged directly into a wall outlet, something that we call daisy chaining. When you have one power strip into another power strip into another power strip, yes, it does give you a lot of outlets, but you're pulling a lot of electrical voltage through those, and that's not the way that they were designed to be done. Other things we look at is multi-plug adapters. The wonderful power of Amazon, you can buy basically anything on there. And so a lot of these multi-plug adapters that maybe you would use in your house, in your household, we try to stay away from in a commercial setting, in a commercial use. Other things we look at would be like your electrical panel. If for whatever a fire crew needs to either turn off power or turn on power, making sure that that's maintained. We call this in the International Fire Code a clear space of 36 inches in front of any electrical panels. So putting storage boxes, anything below an electrical panel, if there was an issue and an electrical panel was throwing sparks and started a fire, you want to maintain that 36 inches of clear space. Portable electric heaters. We all know we live in the state of Washington, which I don't know where our sunshine has gone. Hopefully it comes back quickly, but we live in a state that 9 months out of the year, it's cloudy, wet, and cold. And so we have a lot of portable electric heaters. And so when we find these in businesses, we make sure that they're, like I talked about with the UL listing, that they're listed for being a space heater, making sure that when you tip those over when they're running, that they automatically turn off, and making sure that they're not plugged into a power strip. They're plugged in just like a power strip to a wall outlet directly. Here's an example. If you see in the picture, the black cord to the left is the cord from a space heater that was plugged into. That is a kind of surge protector power strip that is plugged directly into an outlet to provide multiple outlets. But you can see that on the power strip itself to the right, there was some electrical heating and melting of that plastic. This was found in a business here in Clark County, and it was just a matter of time that space heater running would have caused this to melt and could have started a fire and could have been a disaster for that business owner. So this is an example of exactly why we want you to make sure to plug your space heaters directly into a wall outlet. Other things we look at are exiting. This is not only for the public or the business owner. This is for, let's say there was an emergency. Buildings are designed to have exits for a reason. If there was a fire and firefighters needed a quick way to get out, this is an illuminated exit, and we want to make this as simple and easy possible for them to get out, along with the public and you, the business owner yourself. So a lot of times we'll see people that anytime you have a door that has that nice illuminated exit sign above it, there's a reason that building was designed that way. And so blocking something off, putting a piece of paper that says not an exit. That is not up to the business owner. That's the person that designed the building. Those exit doors, however wide that is, that's how wide your exit path needs to be. So here in the middle picture, you can see a business owner was storing some materials, some boxes. This would be something that we would want to be removed so that that is accessible all the time. The other thing that our fire inspectors look at is opening these exit doors. Even if it looks good from the inside, on this far left picture, there is an exit door right there, and if you opened that door, we would probably do damage to that nice new brand looking truck, and that person probably wouldn't be happy, but also wouldn't be able to get out of the building. So we look at all these kinds of things when looking at exiting in our commercial businesses. Other things with maintaining exits, making sure that your emergency exit signs are being tested. Our fire inspectors should be asking for what we call an emergency lighting log, where you test on a monthly basis to make sure that the backup battery is working, that they're not damaged, and provide that to your fire inspector. The other things that you can see when they become damaged, if you have a forklift in a warehouse and it becomes illegible, that would be something that we would want to be replaced. The other thing that we find here in Clark County is illegal locking devices. Like I stated earlier about, in today's world, a lot of business owners and people like to put up fences and gates for security. Sometimes business owners feel like they want more security to their business itself. And so a lovely 2x6 is not a way to put a way to secure your building. This is restricting access from a required exit that we would want to be maintained. If you have questions about what kind of security you can have on your building, what kind of hardware you can to add security, check with the building department or the fire marshal's office, and we can advise you in that. Moving forward, I'm going to let our other Deputy Fire Marshal, Jaron, share some more things that we look at in our commercial business fire and life safety inspection program.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jaron Wong, Deputy Fire Marshal. I've been with Clark County for about 6 months now, and just happy to be here. Prior to that, I was with the Honolulu Fire Department for 29 years. So moving forward, storage. It shall be orderly. Yeah, we don't want things to pile up to add to the fire load. Just make sure everything is nice and neat. You must maintain a 2-foot clearance from the ceiling in a non-sprinkled building, unless you store along the walls. So the 2-foot clearance in the middle of the room, you would say is, if there was a fire, we could get our fire streams over the storage to put out the fire. If it was all the way to the ceiling, it would be a hard time doing that. Under sprinkler heads, we should maintain an 18-inch clearance. This picture here is not quite 18 inches, and it could affect the sprinkler head actually activating. It can affect the spray pattern of the sprinkler. So we want to make sure you maintain 18 inches of clearance. Storage, again. Combustible materials cannot be stored in exits or enclosures for stairways. On the left-hand side is an actual exit stairwell with combustible storage. So if that was on fire, you would not be able to get out. Combustible materials cannot be stored in mechanical rooms or electrical equipment rooms. So these rooms are specifically made for that purpose. Might be a convenient place or extra space to store things, but that's not where we want you to store things. By adding to these rooms, you could add to the intensity of the fire, just adding more to the fire load. So they're not made for that. And in that picture on the right, it's actually, it's not providing that 36 inches of clearance that we look for in front of the electrical panels. Smoke barriers. Smoke barriers and smoke partitions shall be maintained to prevent the passage of smoke. Ceiling tiles in offices, they're pretty common. Sometimes they get damaged and maybe water damage or somebody hits them. But if they get damaged, we need you to replace them. They're an important part of the fire systems, right? If there's a hole there, the smoke and flames can go through the hole, and it might miss the sprinkler head or delay the activation of a smoke alarm. So we want you to maintain the ceilings. Fire doors and smoke barrier doors shall not be blocked, obstructed, or otherwise inoperable. So fire doors prevent fire from going through. The fire doors also prevent smoke from going through them. They're rated. You know it's a fire door if it has a tag on it. It'll normally be on the inside of the door. Any type of exit corridor will have a fire door, like your exit stairwells. You don't want to be blocking those because we want to maintain that exit stairwell free of smoke or fire if we need to use that. Hazardous materials or flammable materials. So compressed gas cylinders need to be secured. And this picture is of a business that uses a lot of compressed gas, and they have a storage for them. They have chains, and that's great, right? They're securing it. But if you look at it closely, some of the cylinders are lower than the chains, and they're outside of the storage. So that would be a violation. We want to store them upright and secure. Approved flammable liquid cabinets, okay, with self-closing doors. If you have more than 10 gallons of flammable liquid, we require that you put them in a flammable liquid cabinet. NFPA 704 diamond, that's what the firefighters look at to tell what they're walking into if there's an emergency. It tells us if there's any health hazards, anything flammable in there, anything that can be reactive, or any special type of hazard. In fact, that diamond right there is for carbon dioxide. So that SA on the bottom is a severe asphyxiant, and we'll talk about that a little later. Propane tanks should not be used in buildings. We've come across a lot of barbecue grills in buildings, and we hope that people don't use that inside. We use it outside. Propane is heavier than air, so it collects. We want it to be in a well-ventilated area, so outside is better for propane. Commercial cooking, there's a lot of risk to commercial cooking with grease-laden vapors. So there's more requirements and more frequent requirements. Hood suppression systems require service every 6 months. Okay, and the hood system itself shall be inspected and cleaned every 6 months. Sometimes more frequent, depending on what you're cooking and how much the grease build up. That picture on the right is actually the head of the suppression system, which is covered in grease at one of your favorite burger places. But that head would be a hard time for it to activate because it's so covered in grease. The manual post station needs to be visible and accessible. So there's actually a manual post station for the suppression system, so it can't be blocked. Class K extinguisher needs to be provided in the kitchen area. And that picture on the left, that silver extinguisher is your Class K, and K, you can remember, is for kitchen. And it not to be used as a coat hanger, or how they're using it there in that picture. And what it does, that special extinguisher is specifically made for like deep fryers. Will provide a layer to prevent it from reigniting. Fire protection equipment, fire department connections and valves should be identified as to the areas they serve. Picture on the left is faded. It's a fire sprinkler connection for the fire department. We ask that you maintain that. Doors to sprinkler riser, fire pump, and fire alarm control panel requires signage. So that's a great picture on the right. One of our newer buildings, it's a fire riser is located in that room. The fire alarm control panel, FACP is also behind that door. You also see the Knox box is right there so that the fire department can get in that room. Access to fire equipment shall be unimpeded and available at all times, so not blocking fire hydrants or blocking fire department connections. Fire alarms. Okay, alarm systems must be inspected annually, and they must be maintained in working order. If that picture on the right, it's all the lights are lit up, and that's not what we want to see, because that means that it is something is wrong with the alarm panel. So you have to maintain that. Pole stations and strobe light indicators must remain unobstructed and unobscured. That picture on the left, it's a great way to keep kids from setting off the fire alarm, but that's not what we want to see, right? Alarm panel requires 3-foot clear space in front. Fire sprinkler systems. Okay, it should be tested annually and maintained in working order like everything else. The sprinkler heads must be free of obstruction that would obstruct water flow or distribution. That top picture, the person put a pop-up tent over his cubicle, but with the fire sprinkler above that, if anything below would to catch fire, the water would not be able to get to that. Okay, sprinkler heads must be free of dust, debris, and paint. Pretty obvious that will affect the activation of the sprinkler, and in fact might not even activate at that point. Sprinkler riser, pipes, and equipment require 3-foot clearance. Firefighters will need to go into the room to shut down the sprinkler if there's a fire, or if there is things blocking, make it difficult. Carbon dioxide. We care about the environment and we don't want global warming, but this is not what we're talking about. So carbon dioxide, we use it commercially to put the carbonation in your soft drinks, and they're used a lot at fast food restaurants because of the amount of soft drinks that they sell. Carbon dioxide is, you can't sense it. You don't know that there's an abundance of it in the air because it's colorless, it's odorless, it's tasteless. So that's the danger of it. It displaces oxygen. It's heavier than air, so it'll collect in a room. And now we have these big 100-pound tanks. Prior to that, it makes it really convenient for the distributors and the businesses to have these big tanks, but it creates a bigger risk. There were a few incidents back in 2011. One in Phoenix where a worker and 2 firefighters were hospitalized because of a leak. And there was also one in, I believe, Georgia, the same year, where a customer actually died in a restroom because of a leak. So if there's even a small leak in one of these cylinders, it's very dangerous. It's liquid carbon dioxide, similar to like liquid propane, so you're just using the gas off the top. But if there's a small leak of liquid carbon dioxide, it expands greatly, like 550 times. So it can, prior to that, using the smaller cylinder, if you look on the left, that's what they used to use, is that smaller cylinder, and the risk wasn't as much. But now with these bigger cylinders, it's a big risk. So we require a permit if we have a cylinder in excess of 100 pounds, and that's the operational permit that Jason was talking about earlier. And we require alarm detection. And we want to make sure that it's working, so we have it tested annually. Fire extinguishers must be a minimum of 2A10 BC, and I'll explain that in a minute. Okay. Needs to be conspicuous location in a normal path of travel. On each floor at about 75 feet is the maximum distance. And they're required to be serviced annually. And that arrow is pointing to the gauge. It looks like even if it was serviced annually, the needle is not in the green, so it's that extinguisher is not good. So they're all over the place, and we try to prevent anything from starting a fire, but sometimes accidents happen, sometimes things malfunction and fires start. So what we have throughout businesses are fire extinguishers, and so they're hanging on the wall. I'm not sure how many of you have ever picked one up, but I'm going to demonstrate how to use one. Okay, so there's an acronym, right? We want you to call 911 first, okay? Let me explain the extinguisher first. So on the extinguisher itself, there are pictures to tell you what you can use the extinguisher for, right? There's pictograms. So it's a 2A10 BC. So 2A, A meaning ordinary combustible, like paper, wood, cardboard. So 2 is the size, meaning about 2.5 gallons of water. So a small fire. 10B, B is, you'll see on the pictogram like a gas can, so it's flammable liquid. So we can use some flammable liquids. 10 meaning it about 10 square feet of flammable liquids this can put out. C is for electrical. It has a plug. So you can use it on something that has a battery or is electrically charged, and you won't be have a risk of getting shocked. Okay. So this here's a handle. Here you can just hold it. It won't. And this is the trigger up here. So this is how you hold it. Okay. So first of all, if there's a fire, it's a small fire. It's in the incipient stage. Okay. So it's like maybe like a wastebasket size, like an office wastebasket size that you would attempt to put out. Anything bigger, anything like a fire is in the growth stage, maybe like 6 to 8 feet. This won't be able to do it. Just get out at that point, okay? So this is the nozzle. So there's a small fire here, okay? Someone call 911 or do it yourself. Get the fire department rolling. Okay, you're gonna pull out the nozzle. Okay, so pass, okay? Pull the pin out. There's a little plastic thing that breaks easily. You pull the pin, okay? A is for aim. You aim at the base of the fire. Squeeze the handle and sweep side to side. The fire extinguisher will last about 30 seconds. Stand back about 6 feet. It's a powder. It's a dry chemical multi-purpose fire extinguisher. So the name says everything. So it's a dry powder. It's not toxic, but it's kind of accurate. If you sprayed it in the back of a van, it would be very hard to clean it. Inside joke. But yeah, any questions in regards to this? They're all over the place. This is your first defense to put out a fire. Okay, corrective actions and compliance. So once we do the fire inspection is done, you get a report through the email, your email address, and we'll take photos of your violations. There'll be a reference code. There'll be notes from the inspector on what needs to be done. We'll do a reinspection in 30 days, but it is a fire code violation. It is a hazard, so we recommend that you take care of it immediately, as fast as you can. Compliance Engine. This is the online software that we use to track fire system services, like your fire sprinkler, fire alarm tests, your hood suppression system, CO2 systems that we talk about. The inspection company will upload the report into this compliance engine. Okay, what can you do to help? Okay, schedule regular inspections. Okay, stay up to date. Maintain fire safety systems. So, just try to make sure that your business is safe. It's a lot of these pictures. It looks like it's pretty obvious what not to do. But you'd be surprised how this is like a daily occurrence for us. When we walk and we do inspections, a lot of these pictures were mine, and I've only been here 6 months. We find this on a daily. So, what can you do? Just make sure you're not blocking anything. Make sure you're not overloading your circuits. Make sure you're doing the right thing. Okay, so fire itself it's just devastating. It doesn't discriminate, right? And we hope that it never happens to you, and that's why we are here, and that's what our mission is, to keep everyone in Clark County safe and to prevent accidents and prevent fires. And we do appreciate your time that you've taken out of your day. And from our Fire Marshal Donna Goddard, we sincerely thank you for being here. So I'll open it up to any questions, if anyone has any questions at this time. Oh, Angie.
Can you tell me why fire extinguishers need to be inspected annually?
Oh, okay. So fire extinguishers are required to be actually tested or serviced annually. What they do is actually take the product out, they check the bottle, they do recharging of the fire extinguisher itself. That's to make sure that it works, right? You should be inspecting it monthly, okay? It's a visual inspection monthly, right? You make sure it's still in the green, the pin is in, nothing's damaged, it's hanging on the wall. You could actually even turn it upside down because it is a chemical in here, right? To kind of shake it up to kind of keep it loose in there. It's very important. This is like your only line of defense if something happens, right? And if they're everywhere on the wall, and if you have any special hazards, for example, if you had you were doing work with metals and you had maybe magnesium that can catch fire, this wouldn't work on it. You would need a de-extinguisher, right, for metals. But it's really important that you get this service annually by a service company, at least, or purchase a new one every year. Right? We allow that as well. Yeah, good question.
When new tenants are going into an existing space, are there certain things that I can share with them to reach out to the fire marshal department to ensure that they have in place to successfully pass, any permitting needs that you guys would need?
You want to take that? Thanks.
Yes. Part of that, they can obviously reach out to the fire marshal's office, but then for us, a big driver is whoever your architect is when you're getting a permit for what you're moving in. And working with the building department, we come up with a occupancy type for you and an occupant load. A lot of our stuff is going to be basically driven from that. And then also whatever kind of operation that they're doing. If they're a restaurant, show that they're a restaurant. If you're a church, show that you're a church. So the more information that you can provide us on paper will lead to less surprises when we come out once you're getting that final occupancy inspection of saying, whoa, we didn't know this at the time that we did your plan review. So the more information helps, and then working with us and the building department so that we all work collectively to come up and really know code-wise what are your requirements.
Thank you.
So, what are the most common violations that you guys see?
Some of the most common ones are the electrical. A lot of times people don't have enough outlets, so they start daisy chaining or using extension cords, but you can easily overload a circuit. We see a lot of space heaters. The electrical one is something that's a common cause of fires, really. So if you need more outlets, we recommend calling an electrician to get it installed correctly. If you start tripping breakers, you're putting too much demand on that system. Also, storage is another one. Like blocking things, blocking exits. Security is a big issue, I find, and people will keep doors that are exit doors locked. We walk in there. A lot of times when I do inspections, I'll pop in so I can see what it actually looks like instead of scheduling it, because I think scheduling it, they know you're coming, so that they might, make sure everything is good. But I want to see it when, but as a business owner, you have an obligation, to make sure everybody is safe. I know security is an issue, especially when you're trying to run your business, but actually you need to be able to get out. If there's any incident, or not only fire, any type of security incident that people need to get out quickly, we need those doors to be maintained. It's your obligation as a business owner to make sure that your exits are maintained. Any?
How much am I going to be charged for a fire inspection?
Okay, so there is a fee when we come out and do your fire and life safety inspection. If your business square footage is under 30,000, which most are, it'll be $150. And for every operational permit, would be an additional $50. Now, if you have a larger business, above 30,000 to 70,000 is $200. From 70,000 to 100,000 square foot is $250, and anything above 100,000 square foot is $300.
Thank you.
Who is responsible for making sure fire systems are inspected and that the report is uploaded into the compliance engine? Is that the landlord or the tenant?
Both are responsible. Typically, the landlord of your building will be responsible for ensuring that the sprinkler systems or any type of system is getting inspected, but it's upon you as a business owner to make sure that these systems are getting done. So if we come and we do the inspection and we find that your system is overdue or requires repair, we will not give you a satisfactory inspection report until that's done. It can even be inspected and not uploaded into compliance engine. We still won't give you a satisfactory inspection until the reports are uploaded into compliance engine. Also, you can, a lot of times it's your lease agreement with your landlord who's responsible for the extinguishers, who's responsible for the hood system, or what have you. It might be in your lease agreement. Does that answer your question? Okay, thanks. Oh, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm moving my business into a new space. We're getting a larger area. Is that not working?
You want to take this one?
It just doesn't like me. Sorry about that. It's the last one wasn't working. So I'm moving my business into a new space. We're getting a little bit of an upgrade. It's pretty much ready to go. I'm just going to throw some new paint on the walls, moving furniture, that kind of thing. Do I have to get a permit for that?
Yes, that's a great question. Here in Clark County, if you're just moving in, there is a building permit that is just considered a move-in only permit, which is a much more cost-effective permit, and it allows us to come make sure that everything was still maintained. The other benefit to obtaining that permit is once you have your certificate of occupancy, usually Jaron or one of our deputies comes out and does what we call a post-30 fire and life safety inspection. And that is a commercial fire and life safety inspection that is at no charge. Because you went through the correct procedures and processes with the Clark County Permitting Center and Building Department and Fire Marshal's office, we reward that first inspection is at no charge to you. So we recommend that you absolutely, yes, get what we call a move-in only permit. Now, if you were a business that was moving in that was either changing the occupancy type, occupant load, or changing a different kind of operation that was happening in that commercial space, then you're going to need to actually get a building permit so that all parties can review that for how you're changing that space. All right. Thank you for attending our Learning Lab, and we look forward to the next one.
Okay, everyone, thank you for attending today's session, and thank you so much for our presenters. Our next session is presented by our building safety team, consisting of Eric Rouse, James Bales, and Michaela Rankin, and the topic is typical residential inspections and common corrections. This is going to take place on the second Thursday of next month, on June 12th at 11 a.m. to replace our normal third Thursday of the month in recognition of the Juneteenth holiday, and we hope to see you there.